Whistleblowers all around on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. And when I say whistleblowers, I mean that in the truest sense of the term, with the government. Whistleblowers coming out and telling us about all the stuff the government doesn't want you to know about. Please don't believe us, but we're going to tell you about some of it coming up in this segment of the show. Reminder of who's here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL. Brian Hold Harmless Harmon at the bar with Burley Short Pour Pellerin, who has not been short pouring. Don't let him lie. He likes to tell you, oh, I got short poured. Yeah, his idea of a short pour is 4 fingers deep in the glass.
You know, you say something one time. What was that? Years ago.
No, you said it way more than once. You kept complaining. You'd like finish your glass with like, you short poured me.
Well,
I poured you 4 ounces.
You did short pour me initially.
I poured you 4 ounces. That's not a short pour.
I'm a big guy.
I've been watching. I always assumed he just drank a little bit of whiskey. That's why his name was Short Pour, but that hasn't been the case tonight.
No. That's why he gets the nickname, because he whines about never being poured enough whiskey. Like, you short poured me. I'm telling you, it's like that every time.
It's fun to drink with him, though, because eventually it catches up.
Yeah, eventually. That is the voice of the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse. Walker Griffon, the Implicit Bias Pledge, in the corner. We're going to get him his own camera sooner or later. That's going to be fun. When we get him a camera, and we're going to make it a
Polaroid?
No, we're going to make it a really unflattering angle on him.
He's going to have to start wearing pants.
Yeah, no, we're not getting him that kind of camera. We are going to get one for him that's going to be, I got some ideas. Because we were going to put a camera maybe in the corner, like between the bar and Caleb's chair.
What if we just AI Walker all the time?
Oh, that could be fun.
Like, we could just be like, you know what? Today, Walker is, give it to AI.
Yeah, we could we might do that. We might do that and see if we can dub that in.
Like a merman with a chicken's head and...
Yeah, all I know is this. Llamas don't have wings. So... That's an old reference from a show.
That was good.
If you didn't get the joke, you might want to go back and try and find it.
Rest in peace.
Yes, Sam Stokes, rest in peace. Our former producer actually once asked if a llama was a bird. Just saying. Anyway, to the stories of the week and to the whistleblowers that are now out there. There are very few really good journalists out there, in my opinion, today. But one of those is Catherine Herridge. Catherine Herridge has done fantastic work. And in the last couple of weeks, she came out with a story of a CIA whistleblower. And we covered the initial part of this story when it happened in Cuba. When people in the U.S. Embassy were saying, man, we think there's some sort of sonic weapon that's being used on us, people losing their hearing, people having issues. And this CIA whistleblower says, oh no, it's not sonic. It is a directed energy weapon, which you might know as a DEW, a DEW, directed energy weapon, which I find absolutely fascinating from multiple standpoints. So first of all, Caleb's looking like he's not going to believe it.
No, I'm sorry. I believe him. But when you hear her talk about it, well, I believe in them, sorry.
Oh, okay.
When you hear her talk about it, it sounds more like what's called an LRAD, which is a long-range acoustic device.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and the LRAD is a really cool piece of equipment. We used it not like you're supposed to. We played Metallica and other stuff. People vomit. It's awesome. But it's a giant speaker that you can play different tones in a certain direction, and you have a limited cone of affected area where people feel it in their feet, get nauseous, get a migraine, and want to remove themselves from the area. A direct energy weapon, normally, depending on what you're using, it'll be microwave, and then it feels like they're cooking from the inside out because the moisture under the epidermis is boiling. Very, very painful. So
first of all, this is where working in something like television comes in handy. Because if you've ever seen old school live shots in TV, so I'm going to go back to the 90s, early 2000s. If you did a live shot, you got sent out with essentially a 15-passenger van that had been converted into a live truck. Large generator.
Oh, yeah. Puts off a lot of microwaves
and a very large microwave equipment in it that would microwave the signal back to the station. the station would descramble the microwave, and that's how you got live television from probably what, the 1950s, 1960s, all the way through almost 2010, before digital really became a thing and they could transmit a signal, bounce it off a satellite, really, really, really inexpensive. But it was known that you didn't point that microwave at a human being, because that directed microwave would cook a person from the inside.
It messes them up. Now, it doesn't happen fast. It takes time, but we have microwave dishes that we use for weaponization.
Well, it's straight logic. If we know that a television station live truck can hurt someone if they get it long enough, what generation of technology is it that's being used there versus what the military has?
The ones that were being tested were tested in like 2003, 2004 on top of Humvees. And you had not necessarily a limited range, we'll call it a limited range, of about 150, 200 yards. But the LRAD was a much broader range. And that's a sound.
Can we say what the range was or range is?
A longer range, but can be very
Yeah, you could
directed.
focus. You could focus it really well.
You could focus it this way, but it would travel.
Now
much
you saw
further.
some of these during the elections and everything else, didn't you?
I saw
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff. That's something that interested me.
I messed with them. You're not like when we were issued them. We weren't supposed to do certain things, and we did because we're stupid. And I wanted to learn how it worked. And when you're on the wrong end of it, it sucks.
Was that you? That was for crowd control, Caleb? What were y'all using?
Originally, it was for crowd control. That was the purpose, to help disperse groups who were doing nonviolent protests.
So, Caleb, I'm going to ask a question. If you pointed one of those, say, at a porta potty in the desert with somebody inside of it, would you by chance know what the effects might be? Might that be a bad
100%,
thing?
100% know what happens.
I
And,
ask because I can only imagine the practical jokes that you tried
it was
to
great.
use those for.
It was great. But you feel it, and it's a sound that you never forget because it comes with like pre-programmed tones that do certain things. And then you could modify those tones and use different inputs to do different things. But the pre-programmed tones, you understood them and you knew what they meant, because there were some of them that made you vomit upon, I'm not going to say impact, but
Yeah, upon the sound wave impacting the body. That's what
and
it would be.
it was almost instantaneous. And from
They-
someone
they
who doesn't throw up
actually-
easy,
They actually used them in Waco, did they not?
they did.
They did. Yeah.
It makes sense. So it was Tesla who said life is frequency and vibration,
Yep.
right? And for those who've ever studied jujitsu, there are nerves on the body that if you tap that nerve in the wrong place at the right amount of force, will do exactly that. You will end up in a ball vomiting uncontrollably because that's what that nerve does. If you can figure out how to vibrate that nerve from afar, which essentially sounds like what an LRAD does, you now have a really good, and what is the de-escalation lethal force? What's the term that's used there?
It would be this would be de-escalation, or even in your rules of force or your rules of engagement, in your escalation of force, because this would be one of your primary ones before lethal force. So
it's
it's
non-lethal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's my point. You would now have a really good non-lethal tool to get people to do whatever it is you want them to do.
Oh yeah, and look, we've had a group of 30 or 40 people in front of us, and they were not complicit. You hit that, they comply. They comply.
You mean
Okay.
they were not compliant? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, not to say not complicit is
they
a
were-
different word.
yeah,
not
they were
not
non-compliant.
to wordsmith you,
Yeah,
but
no, you're right. They were not
they were
compliant.
not-
non-compliant.
No matter what we said,
Yeah.
they were non-compliant. They didn't want to follow instructions, and we're like, "Look, sorry, this is the next step." And all of a
Well,
sudden,
and
they
it
were like,
doesn't
"Thank
even.
you."
The thing is, it doesn't even have to have verbal commands with it.
It doesn't. No, it's
it
self-
takes control of a seemingly uncontrollable situation with a desired effect.
Well, yeah, and these were individuals back then where we were like, "Look, if you do this again, things will happen."
Because they can't communicate.
Correct.
They can't then form. Oh well, let's
Yeah.
do this instead.
No,
They
when-
just
when you-
want to get the hell away from
Once
it.
Yeah.
it's done, it's like ants. They want out of the
They
affected
want
area.
out of the area.
and
Okay,
they want
so
to be done with it.
that now brings us to the extension of this conversation, which is we have established that we have essentially direct energy weapons that utilize sound.
Mm-hmm.
We have an accusation by a whistleblower that we have a direct energy weapon, stick that finger, Walker, a direct energy weapon that does more than just what sound does,
Yep.
and it's being utilized terrestrially on the planet. Now the question becomes Hawaii. Now the question becomes blue roofs. Now the question becomes cars that, for some reason, wildfires allegedly just don't touch. Now the question becomes, is there really something out there that's being utilized that is way beyond what even this whistleblower is talking about? Because if one is possible, are the others possible? Or does it just take too much energy?
That goes, you throw in weather manipulation, creating high and
Well,
low.
HARP is a whole
Yeah.
nother discussion about
No,
what
you
people
can-
think about the HARP.
There's
apparatus.
something else you can throw in on a much lower level that, you put 2 and 2 together, you get 725 all of a sudden. So there's another level of this that just clicked, and it makes a lot more sense.
Are you going to tell us?
No.
Or
No.
we'll sort that out over the break.
No, he's not.
We'll come back. We'll see if we can tell you, or if I can tell you or not. And then we will bring you some more stories, some more weekly whiskeys, and more fun on Implicit Bias.